Hey everyone, so I've been obsessed with this upcoming Mickey 17 movie lately. The philosophical rabbit holes this film is about to take us down? Absolutely mind-blowing.
What's it like? Dying.
That's terrible.
Look, I'm not here to spoil anything, promise. I actually want to make your Mickey 17 experience better by sharing some cool concepts that'll help you catch all those whoa moments Bong Joon-ho is definitely planning. This film drops us into a world where consciousness is basically software, like your iPhone backup becoming a whole new person. But philosophers have been debating this identity stuff for centuries, before computers were even a thing. Gotta give props to Edward Ashton, who created this concept in his novel Mickey 7. He planted some fascinating seeds about cloning and identity. But when Bong Joon-ho tackles sci-fi, he transforms these ideas into something special. Remember Snowpiercer's train as class struggle, or Parasite's house as inequality? I'm betting he'll use cloning to completely rewire how we think about what makes us us. And hey, come on, with this director, cast, and these crazy concepts, how could it not be amazing? Here's the plan. I'll quickly walk you through some cool world-building stuff, then dive into the philosophical concepts that'll transform how you experience this film. We're talking identity, consciousness, existence, the big stuff. So grab something to drink and let's dive in. Let's explore what being human means when being human gets complicated.
Diva! Diva, I'm done here! Mickey, whoa! You haven't done yet? No!
Before we dive in, look, Bong and his team are masters at visual storytelling. I'm just offering some background context, like those little museum plaques next to paintings. They don't replace the art. They just enhance your appreciation of what you're seeing. So first up, the setting, Niflheim. This is an ice planet where the human colony is established. And when I say ice planet, I'm talking serious cold. The kind that kills you in minutes without protection. Now in Norse mythology, Niflheim was one of the primordial realms, a place of ice, mist, and darkness. That name choice isn't an accident. Just like how Snowpiercer's frozen world represented the cold, harsh reality of class inequality, this setting is going to be doing some heavy symbolic lifting. The humans have set up their colony as this little bubble of warmth and life in an otherwise hostile environment. They're not just building a settlement, they're trying to reshape this world in Earth's image. That tension between surviving in a place versus conquering it, that's classic science fiction territory. But I'm betting there will be layers to it we haven't seen before. Now for the concept that gives the film its name, the expendables system. In this world, certain jobs are just too dangerous for regular humans. Enter people like Mickey, who serve as expendables, colonists who get cloned and reborn whenever they die doing these risky jobs. Each new Mickey has the memories of the previous one, up until the point of death. Think about that for a second. You're designed to die. That's literally your job description. But you know exactly what killed your previous self and why you were sent on that fatal mission. Still pretty messed up, right? This isn't just cool sci-fi tech. It's a perfect metaphor for how societies often treat their most vulnerable workers as disposable. Throughout history, dangerous jobs have always fallen to those with the least power. The expendable system just makes that metaphor literal. Then there are the indigenous inhabitants of Niflheim, creatures the humans have nicknamed creepers. The film portrays them as these large worm-like creatures that resemble centipedes. But here's where it gets interesting. They're not just mindless monsters. They're intelligent beings with their own society and means of communication. The name creeper itself is actually pretty revealing about the colonial mindset. Humans showing up on someone else's planet and immediately giving the natives a derogatory nickname. Classic colonizer behavior, right? The relationship between humans and creepers is going to be central to understanding the film's themes about how we treat those we see as other. Finally, let's talk about the colony's structure. Like any frontier settlement, there's a clear hierarchy. At the top is leadership, making decisions from relative safety. At the bottom are the expendables like Mickey doing the dangerous work that keeps everyone alive. In the middle are the regular colonists just trying to build a life. What's fascinating is how this setup mirrors historical colonial projects. There's always been this pattern where the people in charge justify exploitation by claiming it serves some greater purpose. Manifest destiny, spreading civilization, or in this case, ensuring humanity's survival on a new world. But that's enough about the setting. Trust me, Bong and his team are going to introduce all of this with stunning visuals and storytelling that'll be way more impactful than my explanation. What I really want to dive into are the philosophical concepts that'll transform how you experience this film.
I don't like you. You're such a little bitch.
But I'm you.
I'm not you. I'm not gonna live like you. I'm gonna kill you.
And just a quick reminder, this channel isn't about movie reviews. It's about exploring the science and philosophy behind fascinating concepts. Mickey 17 just happens to be the perfect excuse to dive into some mind-bending ideas about consciousness and identity. So, let's meet in my place. All right, now for the good stuff. The philosophical concepts that'll completely transform how you experience this film. These aren't just academic ideas. They're the questions that have kept philosophers up at night for centuries, and Mickey 17 is tackling them head on. Let's start with something called the mind-body problem. It's basically the question, what's the relationship between your physical body and your conscious mind? Are they the same thing? Different things that interact somehow? This question has been driving philosophers crazy since Descartes was sitting by his fireplace in the 1600s wondering if he existed. Think about it. If I transplanted your brain into another body, would that still be you? What if I uploaded your consciousness to a computer? What if I created an exact physical copy of you, atom by atom? At what point does it stop being you? There's this ancient thought experiment called the ship of Theseus. Imagine you have a ship, and over time you replace every single plank and nail until none of the original materials remain. Is it still the same ship? Now apply that to yourself. Your body replaces almost all its cells over your lifetime. Your beliefs, memories, and personality change dramatically. So, are you still the same person you were as a child? These aren't just abstract questions. In a world with cloning technology like in Mickey 17, they become incredibly practical. If Mickey dies and gets replaced by a new clone with the same memories, is that the same person? The movie is going to make you confront this question in ways that'll mess with your head. Now here's where things get even more interesting. Western philosophy has traditionally viewed the self as something stable and unified. But Buddhist philosophy has a concept called anatta, or non-self, which suggests there isn't actually a fixed permanent self at all. According to this view, what we think of as our self is just a collection of constantly changing physical and mental processes. There's no permanent you running the show, just a stream of experiences that we artificially unify into a narrative we call our self. Let me unpack this a bit more. Imagine your consciousness as a movie. Most of us think there's a director, a self, orchestrating the whole production. But the Buddhist view suggests there's no director at all, just the scenes flowing one into another, creating the illusion of a continuous story. Your body, sensations, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness, what Buddhists call the five aggregates or skandhas, are all constantly changing, like a river that appears stable from a distance, but is never the same water from moment to moment. When you really sit with this idea, it's simultaneously terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because there's no permanent essence to cling to, but liberating because it means you're not trapped in a fixed identity, you're more like a process than a thing. Sound familiar? It should, because that's exactly what's happening with Mickey. Each clone is a temporary configuration of matter and memories that thinks it's the same person as the previous versions. The Buddhist perspective would say They're neither the same nor different, because there was never a fixed self to begin with. This concept of fragmented identity isn't just ancient Buddhist wisdom. It's surprisingly relevant in our digital age. Think about how you present different versions of yourself on different social media platforms, or how your online self might be different from your IRL self. We're all already experiencing fragmented identity to some degree. In the 17th century, philosopher John Locke dropped a mind bomb when he argued that what makes you the same person over time isn't your physical body, but your psychological continuity, especially your memories. Picture identity as a river flowing through time. The water molecules, your cells, are constantly changing, but the continuous flow, your memories, creates a single, unified river. According to Locke, if you can remember experiencing something, then the person who had that experience was definitely you. But hold up. This creates some serious philosophical vertigo. If someone with amnesia can't remember their past, are they still the same person? Neurologist Oliver Sacks documented fascinating cases like the man who mistook his wife for a hat, where people with memory disorders essentially became different people. Their bodies remained, but their identities fundamentally changed. And what about the reverse? If two people somehow shared identical memories, like Mickey and his clones, would they be the same person occupying different bodies? It's like if you made a perfect digital copy of your favorite playlist, same songs, same order, but on two different devices. Are they the same playlist? Technically no, but functionally yes. Modern philosophers have evolved Locke's ideas into psychological continuity theory, which is like identity's version of connect the dots. Your identity isn't just memories, but a complex web of overlapping psychological connections, beliefs, desires, intentions, character traits that create chains linking your past, present, and future selves. Think of your identity as less like a solid object and more like a pattern that maintains its form despite constant change, like a whirlpool in a stream. Derek Parfit, in his groundbreaking work Reasons and Persons, used thought experiments about teleportation and brain bifurcation to suggest something truly radical. Personal identity might not be what matters in survival. What matters is psychological continuity and connectedness, whether or not they constitute identity in the strictest sense. But here's where it gets properly mind-melting. All these theories were developed for natural human psychology. They weren't built to handle the conceptual nuclear explosion of digital consciousness transfer. In Mickey 17, when consciousness becomes uploadable code, these theories start to look like Newton trying to explain quantum physics. If I copy your consciousness to 10 different bodies, the question, which one is really you, becomes almost meaningless, like asking which browser tab contains the real Google. The underlying code is identical. The manifestation is simply in different locations. Are they all you? None of them? Something more complex? The movie forces us to confront these questions not as abstract thought experiments, but as lived realities for its characters. Imagine identity as a diamond. It's the pressure of our inevitable death that crystallizes our choices into something precious and defined. Existentialist philosophers like Martin Heidegger argued that our awareness of our own mortality, what he called being toward death, isn't just a depressing reality. It's the secret ingredient that gives our lives meaning and authenticity. When you know your time is limited, like a chess player with a ticking clock, every move takes on significance. Your choices aren't abstract. They're carved into the finite marble of your existence. As Jean-Paul Sartre put it, we're condemned to freedom, forced to make choices that define us precisely because we don't have infinite time to be everything. But Mickey's situation throws this entire existentialist framework into chaos. He's like Prometheus from Greek mythology, doomed to die repeatedly for the benefit of others. Mickey is technically immortal through his endless iterations, yet each individual Mickey experiences the terror and finality of his own death. It's like having all the anxiety of mortality with none of the meaning-making benefits. Picture immortality as typically conceived, endless life stretching before you like an infinite canvas. Mickey doesn't have that. Instead, he has something more like a brutal form of reincarnation without the spiritual growth, death after death, with just enough memory continuity to make the next death terrifying. Albert Camus, master of philosophical absurdity, wrote about Sisyphus eternally pushing his boulder up the hill only to watch it roll back down. He famously concluded, "One must imagine Sisyphus happy, finding meaning in the struggle itself." But Mickey's situation is Sisyphean absurdity dialed to 11, dying repeatedly for a colonial project that treats him as disposable, with each new iteration picking up exactly where the last left off, like a video game character respawning at the last checkpoint with full memory of every previous death. In his essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, Camus explored how we find meaning in a universe that offers none. For Mickey, this question becomes unbearably literal. How do you find meaning when your entire existence is defined by disposability? As philosopher Thomas Nagel might put it, Mickey faces the ultimate collision between the subjective view of his life as meaningful and the objective reality of his expendability. As you watch the film, consider this existential paradox. Mickey's immortality is simultaneously a form of eternal life and a denial of authentic existence. Without the finality that gives our choices weight, does life become meaningless? Or is the very awareness of this contradiction what philosophers call the absurd, the thing that can give Mickey's existence its meaning? Jean-Paul Sartre once wrote that existence precedes essence, meaning we define ourselves through our choices rather than fulfilling some predetermined nature. But in a world of endless cloning, where your choices can be backed up and transferred like computer files, does existence still precede essence? Or has essence, in the form of digitized consciousness, finally found a way to precede existence? Finally, let's talk about how technology mediates and transforms human experience. Throughout history, technology has changed not just how we interact with the world, but how we understand ourselves. Think of our sense of self like a territory that's constantly expanding. The invention of language was like the first time humans built bridges between isolated islands of consciousness, allowing thoughts to travel between minds. Photography fractured time, letting our image exist in moments we'd physically left behind. Social media turned identity into a mosaic, fragments of ourselves scattered across platforms, each piece reflecting a different light. Each technological leap hasn't just changed what we can do, it's fundamentally reimagined who we can be. Cloning technology, like what we see in Mickey 17, represents the ultimate extension of this process, the complete separation of consciousness from a specific physical body. Our minds become software that can run on different hardware. This raises profound questions. If consciousness can be transferred or copied, what happens to concepts like autonomy and free will? If multiple copies of one consciousness exist simultaneously, which one has legal rights? If you know you'll be backed up after death, how does that change how you live? These philosophical questions aren't just academic exercises. They get to the heart of what makes us human, and that's why I'm so excited about Mickey 17. It's using cutting-edge sci-fi to explore ancient questions about identity, consciousness, and existence. Look, all of these concepts deserve much deeper exploration, and trust me, we'll dive further into them in future videos. This is just my first video on the channel, so I'm not going to hit you with all my heavy philosophical artillery just yet. Consider this your appetizer for the mind-bending discussions to come. As you watch the film, keep these concepts in the back of your mind. You'll start to see layers of meaning that might otherwise pass you by. You'll catch references and implications that enrich the whole experience. And maybe, just maybe, you'll come away with some new perspectives on what it means to be you. So what do you think? Is the you from one moment to the next really the same person? Would you volunteer to be an expendable if you knew you'd be cloned after death? And most importantly, after you see Mickey 17, I want to hear your take on how the film explores these philosophical rabbit holes. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious about your perspectives on identity, consciousness, and what makes us, well, us. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the philosophy behind Mickey 17, hit that subscribe button. This channel is all about exploring the science and philosophy behind fascinating concepts, and I've got plenty more mind-bending topics lined up. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, keep questioning reality.